This woke self-loathing.
And we will never let the woke left take it away.
It's because they're putting woke ideology
to a woke mob.
When it comes to calling out the absurdities of woke culture, few people do it better than Bill Maher. A veteran comedian and political commentator, Maher has never been one to shy away from controversial topics, even if it puts him at odds with the very people he used to align with. The event, Bill Maher's explosive takedown on The View. It was a moment that daytime television wasn't prepared for. Bill Maher, known for his no-holds-barred approach to tackling progressive issues, walked into the lion's den of woke culture. The View, a show co-hosted by Whoopi Goldberg, a staunch defender of progressive ideals and an icon of woke politics. Maher's appearance was destined for controversy. What unfolded was nothing short of a political firestorm. Maher took a torch to woke culture, confronting the very ideology that Goldberg and others like her have spent years championing. It was an exchange that left millions watching at home with their jaws on the floor.
Woke is what was sort of ruining everything, and I know that you're
No, I didn't say ruining everything. I said that's why Trump could get reelected.
That's what
Maher didn't waste a second, launching straight into a critique of how far woke culture has veered off its original course. It started out as something good, Maher said, laying the groundwork for what would become a savage takedown. Being woke meant being alert to injustice. Who could be against that? But now it's become a ridiculous farce that's no longer about justice. It's about silencing people. His words were a clear indictment of the cultural climate that has turned social justice into a weapon, one used not to uplift the oppressed, but to tear down anyone who dares to dissent.
Because maybe that is a word that's triggering, and so let's not use that word. I don't want to call it the super far left.
And Maher didn't stop there. He criticized the cancel culture that has emerged from the woke mob, a relentless drive to destroy lives over the most minor of missteps, often for actions taken years or even decades ago. It's not about holding people accountable anymore, Maher charged. It's about destroying lives for sport. The tension in the room was palpable as Whoopi Goldberg, visibly uncomfortable, attempted to push back. She argued that woke culture's purpose was to correct the course of history.
But I find that oftentimes when I'm watching the news, I'm only getting portions, because one of the things that happens, I was listening to you talk about the kids that had the Hamas flags.
But Maher wasn't buying it. He immediately countered, calling out how the movement has abandoned its noble beginnings to focus on trivial, performative nonsense. Instead of seeking justice, it has become about identity politics and extreme purity tests, driving moderates and liberals out of the fold. Maher's appearance on The View was a watershed moment, a live, unfiltered clash between the reality of woke culture's destructiveness and those still desperately clinging to its ideals. For many viewers, it was a cathartic experience. Maher was saying out loud what they had been too afraid to utter, especially in the presence of someone as entrenched in woke ideology as Goldberg. It was a televised reckoning, and Maher was holding the woke left accountable. Bill Maher's long history of critiquing woke culture, while his verbal demolition of woke culture on The View may have been a standout moment, Maher's war against political correctness is nothing new.
To everybody.
Well, again, I think it's this collection of ideas that are not building on liberalism, but very often undoing it. I mean, 5 years ago, Abraham Lincoln was not a controversial figure among liberals.
He's been sounding the alarm for years, often standing alone as one of the few voices on the left willing to speak out against the excesses of progressivism. As the host of HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, he spent the better part of a decade tearing apart the illiberalism that has taken root within the woke left. And every time he does, he sets off a firestorm. In a particularly searing segment in 2021, Maher dedicated an entire episode to debunking what he called the myth of progressive privilege. He pointed out that much of the woke crowd consists of wealthy elites, academics, tech CEOs, and media moguls who live in isolated bubbles, completely removed from the real-world consequences of the policies they push. These are people who live in gated communities with private security, Maher said. They're pushing for things like defunding the police while they're safely protected from the chaos they help create. It was a devastating critique of the disconnect between woke elites and the everyday people they claim to speak for. Maher exposed the hypocrisy of progressive figureheads who virtue signal their way through Twitter, but don't live by the same rules they advocate for the rest of society. He revealed the woke left's dirty little secret. Their policies often hurt the very communities they claim to help, all while shielding themselves from the fallout. Maher has also been a vocal critic of the woke obsession with identity politics. During a 2020 episode of Real Time, he warned that making every political issue about race, gender, and sexuality would be a losing strategy for the left. Identity politics is a losing game, Maher argued. If you make everything about race and gender, you lose the people who want to talk about actual policy. His point was clear. The left's focus on dividing people into categories rather than uniting them around policies that matter, like healthcare, income inequality, and economic opportunity, was driving voters away. The danger of cancel culture, Maher's ongoing crusade. Maher's most relentless critique of woke culture has been its toxic embrace of cancel culture, and he's not wrong. Cancel culture, once hailed as a way to hold powerful people accountable, has morphed into a digital witch hunt where no one is safe from the ever-changing standards of wokeness. Maher has repeatedly taken the woke left to task for weaponizing cancel culture to destroy lives over the most minor infractions. In a 2021 episode of Real Time, Maher unleashed a blistering critique of the woke mob's cancellation of public figures, ranging from comedians like Kevin Hart to journalists and academics. Nobody is perfect, Maher said.
When they get a just comeuppance for actual crimes. And this muddying the water is unfortunate because cancel culture is real, it's insane, and it's growing exponentially, and it's coming to a neighborhood near you.
If the standard is that you have to be perfect to have a career, then we're all doomed. Maher's argument cut to the heart of the problem with cancel culture. It's not about justice or accountability. It's about enforcing ideological purity. And the moment someone steps outside the lines, the mob comes for them. Maher's best example, the case of Gina Carano, the Mandalorian actress who was unceremoniously canceled by Disney for sharing politically incorrect social media posts. Maher pointed out the hypocrisy of an industry that claims to value free speech, but is quick to shut down anyone who voices a dissenting opinion. You don't have to agree with everything someone says to defend their right to say it, Maher argued. That used to be a basic principle of liberalism. Now, it's seen as radical. And Maher didn't stop there. As a comedian himself, Maher has been particularly vocal about how cancel culture has ruined comedy. In a 2020 interview, he lamented the increasing restrictions on what comedians can and can't joke about. Comedy is supposed to push boundaries, Maher said. If we can't make jokes about controversial topics, then comedy is dead. He's right.
But we were able to obtain the footage of the joke that was too intense for America to hear. Watch your monitors.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson isn't the first athlete who's gone into acting. There's also Jim Brown and Caitlyn somebody.
Comedy has always been a space where society's sacred cows are challenged and mocked. But under woke culture, that freedom has been strangled, and Maher is one of the few people willing to fight back. Whoopi's pushback, a tense, unmatched exchange. As Bill Maher laid bare the dangers of woke culture on The View, Whoopi Goldberg, a vocal supporter of social justice causes, attempted to push back. But her arguments were no match for Maher's sharp wit and years of experience deconstructing woke ideology. Goldberg argued that cancel culture was necessary to correct past wrongs. Maher, unflinching, fired back. But at what cost? We can't rewrite history by pretending it didn't happen. We can hold people in the present accountable for the standards of the past.
That's not the news.
Yeah.
You know, like anything that happens on a plane.
Like, the plane skidded off the runway, so what? Call me when anybody died, and the door fell off. Okay.
It was a devastating point. Maher was hitting at the core of what has become woke culture's most dangerous impulse, the desire to erase history and impose modern standards on past generations. Goldberg, visibly frustrated, tried to pivot to systemic racism, an issue that often serves as a rallying cry for woke activists. But Maher wasn't backing down. Systemic racism is real. Inequality is real, Maher acknowledged. But canceling people for things they said 20 or 30 years ago doesn't fix those problems. It just creates more division. Goldberg, flustered, attempted to salvage the conversation by suggesting that cancel culture is just a form of accountability. Maher wasn't having it. Accountability is one thing, vengeance is another, he shot back. Woke culture isn't about accountability. It's about vengeance. It's about punishing people for being imperfect human beings. It was a point that resonated with millions of viewers. Maher was speaking the truth, and Goldberg was left without a real rebuttal.
They know
That's
that
the
you know who
problem.
is going to make chaos. They know it.
Right.
But you know what? You know who's not making chaos? Right here. He's not making chaos. Our thanks to
Bill Maher's warning on the dangers of woke fascism. Maher has taken his critique of woke culture even further, describing it as a form of woke fascism. In a 2021 episode of Real Time, Maher argued that woke ideology has become a form of authoritarianism, where anyone who doesn't adhere to the progressive orthodoxy is cast out and vilified.
Think about everything you've ever texted, emailed, searched for, tweeted, blogged, or said in passing, or now, even just witnessed. Someone had a Confederate flag in their dorm room in 1990 and you didn't do anything?
Woke fascism is the idea that if you don't think exactly the way we do, if you don't subscribe to every single part of the progressive agenda, then you're the enemy, and you must be destroyed, Maher declared. This brand of ideological extremism, Maher warned, is not only alienating moderates and independents, but also handing victory to the right on a silver platter. The left is eating itself alive, Maher cautioned in a 2022 interview. By turning every issue into a litmus test for purity, you're not creating allies, you're creating enemies. This, he argued, is the real danger of woke culture. Instead of building a coalition around shared values and policy goals, it has devolved into a purity contest that drives people into the arms of the far right. Maher's words are a chilling reminder of what's at stake. If woke culture continues down this path, the left will lose not only elections, but the very moral authority it claims to uphold. The reaction from Hollywood and the media, Maher's blistering takedown of woke culture on The View, didn't go unnoticed by Hollywood or the media. Progressive figures lashed out, accusing Maher of playing into right-wing talking points and being out of touch. But Maher has never cared much for the opinions of the Hollywood elite. He's been clear about his mission. He's not abandoning liberalism. He's trying to save it from itself. And that's where Maher has struck a chord. His critiques have divided liberal audiences, with some praising him for standing up to woke excesses and others accusing him of betrayal. But Maher's goal isn't to cater to one side. He's trying to steer the left back towards sanity. What I'm trying to do is save liberalism from itself, Maher explained. Because if we keep going down this path, we're going to lose the fight for justice, equality, and freedom. Bill Maher's unapologetic stand against woke culture. Bill Maher's fearless critique of woke culture on The View was a moment that resonated far beyond daytime television. It was a sharp reminder that even in a world increasingly dominated by political correctness and ideological conformity, there are still those willing to speak out against the madness. Maher has consistently challenged the excesses of the progressive movement, whether it's cancel culture, identity politics, or the growing intolerance for free speech. His appearance on The View was yet another example of Maher's commitment to defending open debate and free thought, even when it means taking on icons like Whoopi Goldberg. And in an era where dissent is often met with cancellation, Maher's willingness to fight back is a breath of fresh air. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video. Let's keep this conversation going. What do you think about Bill Maher's fearless takedown of woke culture? Let's have a real discussion about where this movement is headed.